All right, folks, it is definitely time for world politics. We're going to see if Adam and other people jump in and see what they've got to say about the political front and things that are taking place in the political front. But right now, let me just give you a little bit of a rundown. I did see that we've got some candidates that are athletes that are coming out for Donald Trump. I believe that Mr. Brown, who is one of the former players, has come out in support of Donald Trump and all along those lines. And I do know that Lawrence Taylor and others have come out and said that they are supporting that candidacy as well. So I'm oftentimes wondering if these candidates and their belief systems, or these athletes, are going to sway the elections and all along those lines. So definitely, like I said, I did read earlier that Antonio Brown had come out and was backing the candidacy of definitely Trump and all along those lines, even though I also understand that he's filed for bankruptcy and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see whether this helps him or not. But I know he came out with some things that he was saying in the favor of Trump and all along those lines. So it looks like he is back in the candidacy, and he also called on Trump to help free Young Thug, and definitely that rapper is currently standing trial for an Atlanta jury. So definitely it looks like he is supporting him, and he's also asking him to continue his work in terms of freeing some folks and all along those lines. So he did say that he is backing him, and he cites the pardon for hip hop artists and some of those things as the reason that he is making this endorsement and all along those lines. So yeah, he definitely said that part of the reason that he was doing it was because he felt that Trump was being very good in some lights, better than the current president. So the outspoken Super Bowl champion recently sat down for a wide-ranging interview with a publication called Outkick. And definitely it does look like he said he admires Trump's business moves, and that he studies his dad, meaning Trump's dad, Fred Trump. And he said that he thinks Donald Trump is a good businessman and comes from a good family and has been a good president. That's what he told the folks over there at Outkicks. And definitely he said that he is citing the pardons and the computations Trump granted in his final days in the Oval Office. So he said, I think he does some great things for my brother in the music industry in regards to Lil Wayne and Kodak Black. So it does look like he is definitely coming up. And in days leading up to the 2020 presidential election, the 5-time Grammy Award winner Lil Wayne met with Trump at a Florida golf club, and the encounter culminated with a photo of the rapper standing next to the politician, which was shared on Wayne's social media account. And just a few weeks after the meeting, Wayne was charged with felony gun possession. He proceeded to enter the guilty plea, and at the time, the music star faced up to a decade in prison. But Wayne's sentencing never happened, as the hip-hop artist was among the 143 pardons and computations announced by the former president on his final day in office. And on January 21st, 2021, Wayne thanked Trump for granting his pardon and all along those lines. It's always fascinating. And I'm going to bring in Sasha Starr, see if anybody else joins us as well. But how are things going? I was just saying that I heard on the news, because I was watching some of the news, that there are some athletes. I know that he is worried as to what Taylor Swift is going to do, but there are some athletes that are backing Trump's candidacy. Apparently a former Super Bowl champion that has his own bankruptcy issues and everything has come to his backing and is saying that he's going to be backing Trump. He also called on Trump to help free Young Thug, because that rapper is currently standing trial before an Atlanta jury, and that hip-hop star, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, was arrested in Atlanta in May 2022 and is charged with conspiracy to violate Georgia's racketeer influence and corrupt organization, so the RICO Act, for an offense dating back to 2023, and for also suspicion of participating in criminal street gang activity. But it looks like some of these athletes are waiting and are coming out in support of definitely folks in that area, and it's back in Trump. So, do you think these athletes are going to have any impact on the election, Sasha? Because I've even heard people that are waiting to see what Taylor Swift is going to do, because a lot of people are saying that she has a lot of sway. I don't know that Antonio Brown has a lot of sway, but he did come out today and said that he is endorsing Donald Trump.
Well, these people, including Nikki Haley,
Hmm.
they have no choice as to support Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter whether Trump will win presidency or he will not. I'll tell you why. Because you see, this the highest echelons of Republicans, they are all like-minded people, and they keep to each other in order to get some good appointments, some good jobs on the top of the pyramid, and so on. And if you are not supporting Trump, you're not going to get good jobs in Republican cycles or so on. You will be ostracized, and you will be like pariah, and nobody wants it. Because, okay, if Trump will win, you're a big loser. Now, if Trump will not win, the life still goes on. There are still Republicans will control a little bit here and a little bit there, and they will appoint like-minded people who supported Trump. So, a person like Nikki Haley, she will be out for several years until probably Trump will die. So his life expectancy is still good, 5, 7 years, maybe even longer. So Nikki Haley, who is still relatively young, she will be out of circulation for up to 10 years. That's not something what she would like to do. So the only way to get back in the political arena is to say, yes, I am supporting Trump. Yes, I have to uh, take my beatings. Yes, it doesn't look nice, but the life goes on, and that's what I have to do for myself and my husband, my family, and so on. Okay, I'm supporting Trump. I'm supporting Trump. I'm supporting Trump. Nikki Haley, welcome to the club.
Do you think that he'll be that she'll be vice president? Because I've heard some people speculate that she might be trying to angle for the vice presidency and all along those lines. So, do you think that she will wind up getting the vice presidency, or is she not going to view it to be the person
I
that
have to say, I don't think it's important because it's not going to be it's not
because sometime
election of
between now
vice
and the convention, they're going to have to
presidents.
pick a vice president?
It's not election of vice presidents, it's election of presidents. Nobody cares what's a vice president. See, Kamala Harris, do you think she's a great vice president? Probably not, but who cares? It's a question of Joe Biden, it's a question of Donald Trump, and then Nikki Haley is a vice president or non vice president, it doesn't matter.
You got a point. It doesn't matter. You know, I had a friend I was talking to earlier, and I know that sometimes we say things that can get us on trouble in this network, and this might get us in trouble as well. But he was speculating, and I hope that he's wrong because we haven't had one in a long time. I think Reagan might have been one of the last ones and everything, but he was feeling that Trump can sometimes be very divisive, and then he was thinking that he would not be surprised if somebody doesn't take a crack at Trump and all along those lines. So, do you think that Trump's life is in any form of danger or all along those lines? Because he was speculating that there's some people out there that love him, like the MAGA crowd, as Jacoby talks about it, other people talk about it as well. But there are some other folks that are not that big a fan of his and everything. And I think the last one that anybody tried to take a shot at was probably Reagan. I don't remember anybody else after that, but there might have been somebody after that. But do you think that his uh, does he stand any risk of alienating somebody that a crazy person might go after him?
You're talking about Trump?
Trump, yes.
Well, I think Trump has excellent special forces around him that will protect him. And I don't see that as a possibility, very
You,
distant.
that I agree. That's how did it happen, but there's no telling and everything. You know, there are two areas that I know, Sasha, you are very passionate about, and it seems that Trump tries to say the right things about them. But I've also heard some people that are concerned, and I'm not saying that he's going to win, but there are definitely signs that he might be the next president and everything. But it's one that is very passionate, and rightfully so, because it is your homeland, about Ukraine, and it's one that has some Jewish background of your own, so very passionate about Israel as well. Do you ever feel that if he comes into office, that he might wind up turning the tables and even kind of going more in favor of Russia than Ukraine, or more in favor of Palestine than Israel and everything. So, do you ever have any fear that if he comes into office, that two places that you care deeply about could be in trouble in the sense of how they might be handled and treated?
I wouldn't be concerned about him supporting Palestinians. I think it's probably not going to happen. It's a long shot. Now, of him supporting Russia, that's a possibility, but I don't see that Russia will stay around so long as to wait for until Trump will be becoming president. We are talking about January 20th or so next year. So we're talking about still 9 months, 8 months from now. I don't think that Russia has capacity to last that long because their economy is being ruined. They cannot get any success on the front lines. They keep attacking Kharkiv. They're doing 10 meters a day, losing 1,500 out of 2,000 people while doing that. So I really don't see how they can last next 8 to 9 months. I really don't.
Do you think the war will go past the election and everything? Do you think because
Most Yeah,
Mhm.
most likely, yes, it will. Because what's happened is, see, Russia will not agree to anything if even small part of Ukraine will join NATO and the European Union. So even if Russia will grab, say, 50% of the Ukrainian territory, and the other 50% will join NATO and so on, Putin will not be able to sell it to his people. So it's all or nothing. So he needs to get all Ukraine or nothing. And Ukrainians will not yield even a third of its territory, or even 20%, or even 10%. They will fight until they will win the war. So there is no peace. You see, the situation, remember, it reminds me North and South Korea in 1953. So there were a situation where both sides came to the conclusion that it's better stop fighting and stay where they are and see what's happened. And it's now going on for now uh, 80 years or so. And both are still coexisting one way or another, but that's not going to happen in Russia-Ukraine conflict.
How concerned are you? Because I know part of your show is called Ukraine, Russia, and China. I mean, lately because of the importance of what's going on in Ukraine, it hasn't been as much talk about China on that show and everything. But I just wondered because one of the things I mentioned earlier today was that apparently China is making military moves and they're trying to let the new Taiwanese president know that they are the greater force and all along those lines. And like I said, they're apparently doing some stuff to try to be less dependent on agriculture from other places, be that Brazil or the United States. But how concerned are you as a world scholar and a world person that studies the world about the rise in power of China?
Well, China is not a new issue. It's been around for a while. It's trying to compete with the United States on the world markets, and I think the United States have to take a more aggressive approach to China, and especially now that Russia is so much involved with Ukraine, the U.S. doesn't have to worry about Russia being China's partner or so on. And a recent visit of Putin to China clearly showed that Russia 100% depending on Ukraine, on China, 100%. And they're begging, please give us something, give us ammunition, give us weapons, give us money, give us this or that. It's a very, very weak position. Now, China, they cannot openly support Russia, so they're doing through some back channels and so on, trying to hide their real intentions towards Russia from the West and the United States. So that situation also is not going to last for much longer, I believe.
Hey, somebody that's watching from Canada, are you excited and would you be watching the debates? Because I think the first one is supposed to be next month, or is this just going to be more political theater that you really won't care about, and that it might not even sway anybody one way or the other? But I do know that they are trying to determine when the debates will be held. I've heard some of the people on the Republican side that say that the debates are trying to be manipulated into who will be the moderator, and they are sometimes complaining because they feel that Biden is trying to pick some people that will be favorable to him. And I'm sure that the same can be said on the other side as well. Because there's supposed to be one in July, I know there's June, I believe. I think it's June, and then one in September. And I think they're also planning one possibly for July. So they're already looking at three of them, and one of them should be next month and everything. So I know you're looking at things from Canada. So do you think that these debates will move any conversation, and or do you think debates are successful in terms of swaying votes?
No, I think the debates are important. I think a lot of people will watch the debates and either make up their mind or they will say, they're both good for nothing and will not even attend the, well, if not debates, but the election itself. They're not going to vote. And whoever it benefits, Trump or Biden, it's hard to say. Right?
Do you think RFK should be in the debates? Because apparently there are some folks that are saying that he should be there, and I think even Trump said that he would welcome him. But right now, the June 27th debate, so it is the latter one, will be in Atlanta. And of course, Atlanta's got its own political drama in terms of the way that votes have been handled and some of the races, whether it was with Stacey Abrams or whether the current governor or a number of other things that they've had happen in Atlanta over the last several years and everything. But apparently, that's where the first day debate will be held at. But I just wonder, should RFK even be at the debate? Because apparently, Biden and Trump have accepted CNN's invitation.
I don't think that there will be anybody else except Trump and Biden because nobody has any real chances to win the presidency. So why would you give a microphone even for 3.5 minutes to somebody who has no impact at all, except spoil somebody's chances one or another, but he has no chances to win the presidency. So why do you need that? So you can bring 25 people on stage. All of them are redundant. They have no chances. So is RFK Jr. or Senior. I don't know what's his name exactly. He has no chances whatsoever.
Yeah, he has no chance at all. I agree with you on that. But apparently, he's trying to get in there. And who knows if Cornell West and Jill Stein might try to join in the debates as well. But it seems like the one that's the stronger possibility is RFK because there's some folks that are saying that he needs to be there because of that family legacy and all along those lines. But I'm agreeing with you. I think there's going to be the two of them that will be debating and everything. One of the things that we oftentimes hear about, Sasha, and I'm hoping that Kim will join us on a little bit as well, is this notion of it's the economy. And everybody's worried about the economy. I know you're big on NVIDIA, and I think that it's doing great on the stock market and all along those lines. But will the economy really make a difference in the election? Because I even heard, and I actually had lunch with a friend of mine who is a big fan of EVs. He actually drives one of those Teslas and all along those lines. And he was talking about the environmental impact of a regular gas station because he is, like I said, an advocate for the EVs and everything. So he thinks that they are more economical. And I'm just wondering whether it's EVs or whether it's other things that are economical and everything. Is that going to be the driving force that wins the election, or are folks going to get onto these hot button issues and everything, or is it really going to come down to the pocketbook and who people feel is better for their personal pocketbooks or their personal wealth? What is your take?
Well, it's very difficult to define what exactly is economy and what should we discuss when we're talking about economy. Because economy is doing, in fact, quite well in the last couple of years, maybe even longer. The unemployment went down to well under 4%, from what I understand. And stock market is booming. It's doing extremely well, especially certain stocks like, of course, Nvidia. Look at the Federal Reserve. They're making noises that maybe interest rates will not go down at all. Maybe they will go down, but maybe one time this year. Maybe no time at all. Maybe, in fact, they will be even raising interest rates, depends on the data and so on. And what did Nvidia? Nvidia jumped 10% in one day. simply because of their spectacular quarterly report. So essentially, that is making situation when all investors are divided in two classes. One huge class who don't have NVIDIA shares, and one very small number of people who do have NVIDIA shares. Tragically enough, there are a lot of people, hardcore disbelievers of NVIDIA, who went short on NVIDIA. NVIDIA went down just in April. It went down from 950 or so to 750. So these people decided, okay, that's the end of NVIDIA. Let's short the stock. It will go down to 300. It will go to maybe even $50 a share. It will be delisted and whatever. All these people now with a stock well over $1,000 a share, what do they have to do now? Well, there is a company, Uber.
Which company?
Uber.
Uber.
Uber. So you should ask me, so they should sell NVIDIA or close their positions and buy Uber? No, they did not need to buy Uber. They will have to drive Uber instead. All these people who were telling us that NVIDIA is good for nothing and it will go down, it's overpriced. Even today, believe it or not, around 10 o'clock in the morning, I was watching CNBC and there was one bonehead idiot saying that NVIDIA is overpriced and there is a competition from AMD and somebody else. All this nonsense. He should be ashamed of himself saying such idiocy. Because, look, NVIDIA will have a stock split 10-1 on June 7th. Now, what's happened with the stock split? 3 years ago, NVIDIA stock was $800. It had split 4-1. So obviously, each shareholder of NVIDIA, instead of $800 per share, he's got 4 shares, each $200 a share. In no time, the stock went up to 800 again. So now, I said before that NVIDIA is $1,500 stock. But now when I heard yesterday about stock split 10-1, no, it's not $1,500 stock. It's $3,000 stock.
Oh, wow.
300, it's a new 3,000, it's a new 300. So you understand that from 100 to 300 is much easier jump than from 1,000 to 3,000. Why? Don't ask me. I don't know why, because mechanically or mathematically the same thing. From 1,000 to 3,000, same thing as from 100 to 300, but there is much more liquidity on that 100 level. There will be a lot of small-time investors who will start buying stocks. They cannot touch it at $1,000 a share, but for $100 a share, they will jump in, and the stock will keep going higher and higher and higher. That's what's happened with NVIDIA. Now, people who don't have NVIDIA, they've been screwed big time, because now the people who have NVIDIA, they are so far ahead in their market performance. They're making 100, 200, 300% in a few months compared to others who are buying some kind of garbage stocks and are fighting for survival. And probably they will end up driving Uber.
Yeah, they might drive Uber, they might drive DoorDash or Grubhub or one of those other services and everything. There's another issue that's been in the news politically, and a lot of people have been talking about it. I know Adam brings it up when he's here, and definitely Jacoby has brought it up. But it looks like for the second time in 3 months, even though it was a bipartisan group that backed it, an immigration and border security measure has failed. So it looks like they are having political stalemate, and apparently the legislation fell short of the 60 votes needed, and the final tally was 43 to 50, as nearly all the Republicans voted against it. So I was just wondering, are we ever going to see any solution in the immigration issue? And do y'all have immigration issues in Canada? So like a bunch of United States people flooding into Canada or in other parts of the world coming to Canada? Because I know the one here is like the South American border areas coming into the United States, but there are other immigrants from other parts of the world as well. But apparently once again, it's been shot down. So, and apparently it was a bipartisan group that created this effort, but even though it was bipartisan, it wasn't bipartisan enough. And I had heard, and I think other people had mentioned that Trump likes to keep that issue as a hot button issue because then he can use it during the political season and everything. But are we ever going to solve this immigration problem in your mind, Sasha?
Never, never. To solve this problem, you see, in Canada, it's not a problem whatsoever at all because Canada has oceans on both sides
Right.
and the North Pole on the north and United States on the south. So the Canada is not even achievable physically for these people. And even those immigrants who are coming to Canada, somehow they are mingling with their own people. See, people who are coming from South America or Mexico, they are integrating with their own community and they speak their own language and they're working, some for cash, some for whatever, pay. They're renting each other the housing. So it doesn't affect, really, to tell the truth, I never even met any of these immigrants from whether it's Asia or Africa or South America. I never met them. I even don't know what it's all about. Mm, It doesn't affect average Canadian anyway, one way or another at all. So this is not an issue. Whatever people were able to come to Canada, okay, welcome, okay, make a living, go to work, go to whatever, do whatever you want to do. Now, I don't know why is it such a great issue in the United States because you have a ready supply of low-wage earners who will do a lot of jobs that native-born Americans will never do. They will keep receiving their welfare checks. They will not never work. So these low-paid immigrants, they will do all these jobs. So I don't know why America is so much against immigration. I really don't see that.
I don't get it either. Like I said, it is a thing where we claim to be the melting pot, and I know other countries have that as well. I did see something else in the news that folks might be interested in, and you'll be interested in because I know one of your other interests, and it's an interest of mine as well, is in music. And I know sometimes we've talked about how you like to see things on the internet because it's a lot cheaper, but apparently the Justice Department has jumped into the fray because there have been a number of monopolies, and one of them that I've talked about is Live Nation. So apparently the Justice Department now has a lawsuit against Ticketmaster and Live Nation, and they're saying that could give concert goers, sports fans, and theater patrons some relief from the surge in ticket prices. So the lawsuit could potentially lead to a breakup of Live Nation's Entertainment, which is a company that resulted from Ticketmaster's 2010 a merger with the concert promoter Live Nation. And like I've said before, they oftentimes will have the artists, the tickets, and a number of the other elements. So apparently this is something going on that might be good coming from Attorney General Merrick Garland, because he said that the aim that he was doing was to allow more competition and to let smaller players gain some of the U.S. ticket selling market, which right now Ticketmaster controls a whopping 70% of. So if you're going to get a ticket, it's probably going to come from Ticketmaster. So maybe Pod TV, maybe Kim, if she's still there, can tell us how we can jump into this and all along those lines. But apparently there's an effort to try to drive some of those prices down, because like I said earlier, and I mentioned some of the prices that would be there if you wanted to go see Lions King. I said I think it was somewhere between $75 and close to $200 if you want to go. But there might be an effort from the Justice Department to break the prices. And I don't know your views. I know you're in the stock market, but I don't know your views about monopoly. So will it be a good thing if we break up this monopoly that, like I said, oftentimes controls the venue, the tickets, and in some cases the entertainers as well?
No, I think it's a healthy development. I think people probably will benefit from this initiative because right now it's only one player in that field.
Right.
There's nowhere to go. So I think it's a healthy development.
Yeah, that's a very healthy development. I think so too. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out and if it is actually carried out and all along those lines. Hey, and apparently Trump's mad at the Secret Service. He's accusing the Secret Service of a critical flaw in their RNC convention planning. So I just saw this article, but apparently Trump is mad because this is something that will be taking place in a city that I used to know quite well because it's where my college was located at in Milwaukee, because their conference conference will be in Milwaukee. The other one will be in Chicago. But the Trump campaign, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, on Thursday fired off a letter to the U.S. Secret Service Director Kim Chettle, demanding they fix a critical flaw in the security perimeter of this summer's Republican National Convention, claiming that attendees' safety, speaking of safety, is at risk as protesters plan to descend on the area. And like I said, I've thought before that both Chicago and Milwaukee are subject to a number of protests. So that convention is slated for almost a month and a half from now. So it'll be July 15th through the 18th. And it encompasses a perimeter that encompasses a nearby park, which is Pere Marquette, and all along those lines. So as of now, pedestrians would have to walk through Pere Marquette, which is owned by the city, to reach the facilities. But according to a person familiar with the security plan, the park serves as a natural congregation point, and there is heightened concern that attendees' safety may be at risk if the park is not secured. So I guess they're afraid that the park might be too open, and it might be too open for protests, too open to people to get to folks that are involved in these various conventions. I imagine something similar could happen in Chicago as well. But what is your take? Do we need to have tighter security? Because I know when one of those conventions was in Charlotte. I do remember going down there and seeing some of the counter protests, but that was at a park that was away from the main convention. Because I want to say the main convention was at the downtown area, and I want to say that park was several miles away because there had to be buses to get to the counter protests and everything. But this sounds like it's literally in their backyard. So what's your take on this? Do they need to be concerned about this safety concerns that apparently they have?
I wish police would be much more smarter than it is now. Instead of fighting these protesters, you would have to penetrate the organization of these protests, to identify leaders of these protests, throw them to jails, make them hire lawyers by paying $25,000 to $50,000 to represent them, and all these protests would be diffused, and there would be no need in the special precautions and so on. But I guess police is not that smart. They would rather risk their lives to confront the protesters face to face, and so it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Speaking of things that don't make any sense, and this is getting away from politics just for a second and everything, would you have been going and trying to buy some land from Elvis Presley? Because apparently there's a company that was trying to force the sale of Elvis Presley's Graceland, and apparently coming back to politics is being investigated by the Tennessee Attorney General. So the Tennessee Attorney General is opening a probe into the recent fight over Graceland after the judge paused an attempt by an alleged creditor to force a foreclosure sale. So I guess they're trying to put Graceland into foreclosure and maybe even take the estate from that family, which is a very prestigious family, and all along those lines. So politics can even get into our pop culture as well, because apparently over there in Tennessee, they're trying to have a foreclosure moment against somebody that is definitely known by many as the King of Rock and all along those lines. But apparently they were going to take the estate from the Presley family. So I was right. They were going to take it from the family. So what's your take on this? And does the Attorney General, does he need to be concentrating on something else? Because apparently the investigation was opened into the Nasani Investments and Private Lending LLC, the company that claimed that Lisa Marie Presley used the famed estate as a collateral in a $3.8 million loan. So apparently, and I know she passed away not that long ago as well, but apparently she had it as collateral. So if it was collateral, I guess it's up for a sale if you did not back what was going on, what you were using it for collateral for. So what's your take? Should they be going after this prestigious home?
Mark, you answered your own question. If it was used as a collateral and the money are not paid back, it's foreclosure. Okay? And when it's foreclosure, either you pay up or you let it go. What else can I say?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So they could be in deep trouble. You know, these politicians are getting in trouble left and right. Because I also see
what politicians have to do with all that?
Well, that was an attorney general. Though. Like I said, it was the Tennessee Attorney General. So it's kind of like, I know that Kim sometimes talks about how she's not a big fan, even though he's running for governor, of Josh Stein, who is our attorney general that is now running to be governor. But attorney general is a political office. So apparently that it has to be backed by whoever the Tennessee governor is in order for the investigation to even take place. So that would be a political conversation. To
I
answer
just
your question.
don't see a political conversation here. I can see the collateral, which guaranteed a property. The amount of loan was not paid, or maybe partially, or maybe it hasn't been paid at all. But it doesn't matter. There are errors. They have to be rectified. Normally, they should have, plenty of notice, like 2.5 months, even 3 months. And if they cannot make it good on their payments, then it's a foreclosure. I don't see any political issue here.
Like I said, and sometimes politics gets into personal matters because apparently in Baltimore, which is just out of D.C., there was a ex-top prosecutor that has been sentenced because she had mortgage fraud and a perjury conviction. So she was a top officer, kind of like what Josh Stein and others are, but she actually got busted. So she's to be sentenced this week for lying about her personal finances so that she could improperly access retirement funds. And that might have been during the time that she was actually in office. So some of these political figures do things that should be considered in their personal business and everything, but they are in a political lane. So because they're in a political lane, they wind up getting in trouble and everything in that space. So it definitely looks like that's what has happened to the former state attorney, Marilyn Mosby, who was sentenced. In her sentence includes 12 months of home confinement, 100 hours of community service, and 3 years of supervised release. But apparently, she got herself in all kinds of trouble as well, even though she was a political leader. So some of these political leaders don't realize the power that they have, and maybe they realize too much of the power they have, and they think that they can get away with things that they shouldn't be getting away with. Because sometimes, if you are politically oriented, you probably think that you can get away with more than you actually are able to get away with, because people, whether it's the press or the common citizens, might be watching you more closely than you are expecting that they are watching you, and all in those lines. So, like you said, sometimes it seems like, even like with the Elvis Presley matter, you wouldn't think that the Tennessee state would be getting involved in it, but that's an attorney general. That makes it a state issue, and probably even a national issue if it becomes a national, if it goes up the food chain and all along those lines. So I agree with you that sometimes you're going like, wait a minute, shouldn't this be between the private individuals? But sometimes the court system gets involved as well for whatever reasons.
Well, let me just remind you that great Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart,
Mm-hmm.
he passed away in complete poverty.
Yes.
And, he was buried in a common uh, place in a cemetery with only two people attended his
Mm-hmm.
funerals, and his wife couldn't even pay his doctor for the last few days of whatever he was trying to cure him. And it's maybe my opinion only. He means for music 1,000 times more than Elvis Presley and all his family together, and therefore I don't have any sympathy for what's happening to Elvis Presley. Um, uh, Property or whatever he still had. I have absolutely no sympathy whatsoever. Elvis Presley, he was great when he was alive. He was a great entertainer, songwriter, singer. So on. But it's been now so many years ago. It's a new world, it's a new idols, and these idols will go away very quickly, and you will never hear from them again about them.
Yeah, even some of the American idols, you don't hear from them after they have their moment of fame and everything. I know you're into stocks as well, Sasha, and I did see that Boeing expects a 2024 cash burn, and apparently they're saying that there will be a slow recovery of their airplane deliveries amid their crisis. That's what their CFO says, and I know Milan is very much into uh, the stock market in a different way than you are, and all along those lines. But what is your take on Boeing? Is it in serious crisis, and will it be collapsing as well? Because apparently their CFO is forecasting that the company would have a negative free cash flow in 2024 as their troubles are persisting. But I think he's also thinking that they might be able to turn the table at some point or another.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult issue because they do have a lot of orders they have to fulfill, and that is indication that it should bring cash flow and company should be financially healthy. To me, the greatest indication is that their main competitor, Airbus, is making much better planes. That's a problem. The quality of Airbus planes is way higher than Boeing's. Trust me, I flew on a Dreamliner 737 Boeing, and I flew on Airbus A350. It's uncomparable experience all the way. A350, okay, I was flying business class in all these planes. You cannot hear sound of an engine in the cabin. You can talk to your neighbors in the plane. I was talking to my wife, and I could whisper, and she would hear what I said.
Wow.
The service is uncomparable. The experience is night and day. And that's what will break Boeing eventually, because, okay, so they will have aerospace business and it has competitors, even in the United States, like Lockheed Martin and several other companies. So I would not touch shares of Boeing, period, not whatsoever.
Hey, speaking of things you might touch, because I know that you've been definitely on a lot of the shows, including your own, talking about the Trump cases, and apparently we'll get a verdict on the one that is with the hush money and everything. But there are several other cases, including the Georgia one, and apparently the Georgia prosecutors on Thursday said they would appeal a judge's ruling dismissing some of the criminal counts in the 2020 election subversion case against the Republican candidate Donald Trump and several of his allies. Apparently, Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis has said that a state's appeal court decision to take up Trump's bid to disqualify her office from the case also allows the court to review other rulings. So it looks like they're going full force into this in Atlanta and all along those lines. So, like I said, the case is one of 4 criminal prosecutions that Trump faces as he's seeking this effort to unseat the Democratic president and to come back to the White House. So, what is your take on the Georgia case? Does it have any legs to stand on? I think Nick said it might be one of the stronger cases, but what is your take on this case, and does it stand any legs? Because apparently, I think you and Nick and others have said that they think it's going to be a hung jury on the one that's in the hush money case. But what is your take on the election subversion case out of Atlanta?
The major player in these cases is definitely Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is well behind Trump because 3 of 9 judges were appointed by Trump. There is a 6-3 conservative majority. And look at this nonsense that they are now considering the immunity of Trump, what kind of immunity it is. They better watch themselves how they will get immunity. The Justice Thomas and Justice Alina, they have to worry. But again, nobody is bringing that to attention that these 2 people have to be dismissed from anything concerning Trump's immunity. I think, I don't know exactly how it works in the United States, whereas the Department of Justice have to start proceedings against these 2 horrible justices, or it has to be Senate or House. I really don't know how it works. But that's going to be complete. They already gave Trump extra several months while they're deciding immunity issue. I don't understand if that issue hasn't been dealt with, why the hush money case proceeded. Because if Trump has immunity, how he can be found guilty in this case? What does it mean? Automatic appeal? Like what?
Yeah, I don't get it either. It'll be all interested in everything along those lines. I know we've only got about another 10 or 15 minutes to go. And like I said, I hope Kim will jump in because we've got Coco Show coming up very shortly as well and everything. But just out of curiosity, because I know I've asked you this before, but I don't follow all of the news. I know you and Shaquille follow a lot of things around the world, including the United States and everything. But what is the big issue for somebody that is watching? Because we all call world politics and everything in Canada. So if somebody's watching this show right now, if they're watching it later on in reruns, I know a lot of people are not fans of Trudeau and some of the other leadership of Canada. But what is the big issues? Because I do remember that whole trucking conversation. But what is the big issue that when you turn on your TV in Canada is being talked about? Because I know here it's a lot of issues around gun control, gang violence, and things around that side, even on our local news. But when you turn on your news with your wife there in Canada, what's the major talking things?
Definitely not gun control. Definitely not demonstrations. Sometimes, occasionally, they talk about the demonstration in Montreal and Toronto, but they don't spend a lot of time on that because basically they're kind of localized, and I think people by nature in Canada less violent than in the United States. So even this pro-Palestinian protesters, okay, they're coming in. I think it's a lot to do with the money available to demonstrators. And of course, they're taking money, they demonstrate a little bit here and there, they're going to pubs to drink their beer, and that's about it. So it's not a big deal either. So what else they can talk in Canada? They talk about American politics. They make comments about the Trump trial here and there, but not in such details as you have US based commentators on both liberal or Republican and Democratic commentators. So you have, if you really follow that, you are much better off listening to US commentators.
What's the take on the Canadian leadership? Because, like I said, I've heard both you and I've definitely heard Shaquille say some very negative things about the presidency and the person that is running Canada. And like I said, I hear him in the news on occasion, but I don't pretend to know all of the reasons that he is loved or hated. But what is the take on the leadership of Canada? Because I know it's a different political system to some degree and everything, but what is the take on y'all's leadership there in Canada? Is it seen as ultra conservative, ultra liberal, or how is it perceived?
Well, you know that in Canada there is a three-party system. It's a liberal. Well, there are probably more parties, but let me correct myself that in elections there are three parties. It's liberal, progressive conservatives, and NDP, which is National Democratic Party, if you want to call it that. Normally, the leadership is split between progressive conservatives and liberals, and NDP. So then normally they would get, say, over 40% each, and say 18% or so would be NDP. So NDP is, of course, they participate in debates. Nobody is taking them seriously because they don't have any chance to win, to become a majority party. So even I remember one debate when former Prime Minister of Canada, Harper, who is still considered to be one of the best Prime Minister of Canada, when there were three-way debates, and he said to a leader of then NDP, he told him, "I envy your situation. You can say anything what you want. You don't have to care about anything because you'll never have a power. So you can say anything what you want. It doesn't mean anything." And unfortunately, when I talk, I have to watch my mouth. I have to think about what I say. You don't. And lately, what's happened is that NDP got into alliance with the Liberals. So, of course, Liberals don't have majority, but with NDP they do. So the next election, which will be next year, we'll see if progressive conservatives will be able to wrestle power from liberals. Some people hope that it finally will happen because Trudeau, a leader of liberals, he is. It's a little bit too much of him. People want to get rest from Trudeau.
What's the conversation? Because I've mentioned to you before that I have a relative that lived there, and it is part of my own ancestry. But did you ever hear any conversation about anything around the First Nation? Because I do know that one of my cousins, because I've got several, but one of the cousins did marry somebody from Canada that was of one of the First Nations tribes. I don't remember which one, and of course he's got some First Nation background as well and everything. But is that still a talking point there in Canada, either the way that they are treated or not treated, those that are of what some people in parts of the world would call First Nation. I know here they're called Native Americans, and they have other terms as well. But is that something that is even discussed in Canada?
I don't believe that it's being discussed because if average Canadian would know what a great life First Nation people have in Canada, all the privileges they have, they would envy the native people. So therefore, it's not. They don't pay taxes. They have very good housing and food and just anything they want to study. They study free of charge. They can work anywhere they work, or so on. They have a greatest life possible. So the average Canadian would probably burn with envy if they would really discuss the situation.
Sounds like it because I know that, like I said, my cousin did marry, and I think they're in the process of getting divorced if they're not already divorced and everything. But they did have kids, and I know that he's started his business, which is actually a business of selling native wear like belts and other things. So he's been doing that for a while and everything. I want to say it's Red Eye Supply or something like that, but he's doing it out of Canada and all along those lines. But yeah, he moved there with his then lady love, and he seems to love it so much that I don't think he has any plan of moving back. So he's one of your fellow Canadians now, and I don't think he has any intention of coming back to the States from what I've heard Will say and all along those lines. So like I said, he came down there, found his lady love. Whether that worked or not, that's up to them and everything, but he definitely did fall in love with that part of the world and everything. So I will give you credit for that. So I know you've found some love of Canada coming from Ukraine, and apparently he did that coming from North Carolina. So apparently he's got some great interest in all along those lines. But we're actually going to end a little bit early because Kim's not here and I've got to get ready to do the other show. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you. Like I said, I always for times learn from you, whether it's about NVIDIA or some of the other things. As other folks have said, we don't always agree. Some things we agree on, some things we don't, but we can still have a very fun and interesting conversation. So I know we'll hopefully have some more of our regulars on next Tuesday, and of course on World Edition. So if it's all right with you, we're going to just end a little bit early, but as always, I've had a good time with our conversation and definitely always enjoy spending this time with you, Sasha.
Thank you, Mark. All the best to you and our listeners. See you tomorrow.
Sounds good. We're getting ready to get out of here. Bye-bye.